All right, here we go. Into chapters 10, 11, and 12. Far Journeys, Robert Monroe. And we're getting into some crazy stuff tonight, I think. I have tons of notes on the latest chapters here of all the crazy adventures that Monroe goes on here. We'll try to keep it to the book if we can, because there's so much to go over tonight. I'm Juice out of New York. It's kind of a little crazy since I've been doing these and working on the Gateway program at the same time. I really haven't had many experiences, so it's kind of like that weird drought that some people have been talking about on here, but then suddenly have great experiences afterwards. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm building up to a big out of body coming soon. And it's kind of happened to some of the other people on here too. No experiences, and boom, the next day they have out of body experiences. But go ahead, Lenny. Where are you from, and if you want to share an experience with us?
Well, I back in the '70s I started, from Castaneda, and at the time I was practicing an experiment, being celibate, um, uh, working physically, reading a lot of books, and mentally challenging myself to separate the nonsense from what might be truer. A little intense spiritual summer. So at that time, and I do attribute all of that to the fact that I was able to remember to look at my hands and wake up completely, which was a crazy an experience. The first few times I was so flipped out that this happened, and I would wake up in bed, and then I realized I had to just kind of be relaxed and not get all excited, and I was able to maintain that out of. I don't like using out of body. I mean, my my experiences over the years have led me to understand that all of whatever that is, that we use the phrase out of body, all that, whatever place that is, it's it's a consciousness thing. It's not anything physical, and it's all here. It's just that our physical senses, our mind is so loud that it drowns all of that other out, and it's all there. Just like the stars are always in the sky, and the starlight is always there. It's just the sun itself is so bright we can't perceive the stars, but they are there. You block the sun out like with an eclipse, and then there are the stars. Anyway, so um, that's pretty much it. I did all sorts of weird stuff, went all sorts of weird places, tried all sorts of weird things, and ultimately realized that it's all just a projection. I mean, in what we call that out of body state, it's very easy to see that things appear to be, but they're not. They appear to be solid, but they're not. And I realize that that's no different here. You know, things appear to be whatever they are, and they're not what they appear to be, and nothing is, and everything is just one big kind of vibrational uh, musical piece, or whatever you want to call it, consciousness. And I like using the analogy, it's just a projection, a movie. It's everything, all experience of any level, um, is just a projection on the screen of ultimate absolute awareness, so to speak. And we're all characters. And another thing that I began to understand, at least, is that everything is doing what it's doing and exists the way it's existing because we everything needs impressions through senses. Everything. That's that's like, in my estimation, the number one universal rule of all existence. Even God. That's God. If we use that phrase, God is projecting the entire thing, the source of everything, we're dreams in a sense. You know, we're thoughts. Um, there's obviously some reason that God needs all of that. Just I guess no different than us. We need impressions. We need titillation, experiences, dreams, thoughts. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Lenny. Lenny's a big seeker, man. A ultimate seeker. Thanks, Lenny. Hey, Brett.
Hey there, how's it going?
Great. How are you? What's going
Doing
on?
well. I did have an experience a couple nights ago, which was cool, but it was very short. And
Hey.
I didn't realize what was happening until the end, basically. I
Awesome.
I've been doing my affirmation and intent work every night, trying to get back into it. And the other night I just was laying in bed really strongly thinking about it, including I want like that want to project or to go out of body. And I found myself seamlessly entering like a dreamscape in which I was still laying in bed trying to project, which was kind of funny. But I felt a pop, a really kind of strong pop in my head, and that should have been the cue. But but I was like, oh, that's weird. I just chalked it up to some biological, like whatever, you know, the body doing its thing. And but my body was kind of buzzing. Like it's this very obvious feeling that's hard to explain. But um I'm just laying there trying to project, and I could see, and it's still dark in the room. It looked just like my room, and my wife's laying there next to me. Only it got kind of creepy. My I think I was nervous and kind of anxious about it, and I felt this energy building up, and like it was weird, like in my shoulder or something. And I thought it almost felt like a cramp. So I'm sitting up in bed trying to rotate my arm, and as soon as I start sitting up, my wife starts sitting up, and she's facing away from me, and she starts sitting up, and I'm just thinking, since I am thinking I'm still in the physical, I'm like, oh, do you have to go use the bathroom? And in a split second, she spun around and grabbed my neck and started talking really like creepily at me, and then at that point I was like, oh, I'm out of body already. And I was like, nope, I don't want this. Not right now. And I was like, I'd like to wake up. And I just felt like I dissolved, and then I woke back up like 2 seconds later. So it was a mini success. I
Yeah.
have to not let it get me down and just keep trying.
Right. You know how Monroe talks about, the going back and forth, and especially the early days of experiences like that. And of course, the biggest thing is, I don't know if it caused it, but fear.
I think I was getting attacked by some approximation of my own anxiety and
Yeah,
nervousness at the time.
makes sense. That's great, Brett. We're having a lot of success on here. All right, thanks, Brett. Julie? Hi, Julie.
Hi guys. Nothing too much has changed. I keep practicing, and I definitely keep feeling the what do you call it? Signals, symptoms, etc. The vibrations and the what some would call the subtle body of the loosening. I do feel the loosening of, if you will, the astral body from the physical body happening a lot, but I'm still trying to get used to recognizing. Usually, when I recognize it, it's kind of after I come out of it. Like I'm kind of so close to that falling asleep state that sometimes I don't recognize the loosening as oh, you know what? You need to start working with your energy and try and get out of your body. It's hard to get that conscious. But, things are progressing, and I'm continuing my reading and my research. It's very interesting stuff. I really like it.
That's part of the journey, right, Julie? To just absorb it a little at a time and enjoy the ride.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So it's cool. But yeah, I'm crossing my fingers that I'll have something to report in the weeks to come, something more substantial.
I hear you. I'm with you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. Juan. Hey, Juan.
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I had a projection. When was it? A day yesterday. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
Someone had given me a space cake in the afternoon, so I had some of it, and I kind of got bored. I said, "This thing is too dry." And then all of a sudden, I fell asleep. Now I don't normally sleep in the afternoon. I'm not one of those that can fall asleep in the afternoon. You know, have an afternoon nap. You know, very very rare for that to happen. And it was during that period I projected. But it was kind of weird. I've heard people share this kind of this experience before, and I said, "Oh, you should have opened your eyes. If if you leave your body, you're supposed to open your eyes. But there's this fear that if you open your eyes, you would end up waking up." Um, I rolled out. I rolled out of my bed. Everywhere was in darkness, and I did this 3 times. Then I went to my stair to where the stairs is, and I was able to. I felt the staircase. It felt solid, but I had no visuals, and I refused to kind of open my eyes because I didn't feel I'd gone deep enough,
Yep.
even though I had the sensation that I had left my body and I had come out through the door, and I was on the stairway on the way, to I felt all the sensations, but I refused to open my eyes 3 times. 3 times, it happened 3 times. Because what I found is that if you project once and you come back, it's very easy to go back again. And you can do it. My record on that one of the in and out has been 10 times where I was able to go in, out, in, out, in, out. So you have to be consciously alert to know that you can do that. If you come out of a projection, maybe it was a failure, you are in the right condition, you're in the right state to go back to go for another one. And that's what and that's been my experience, because I used to use that same technique for in lucid dreaming, where you have a dream and then you go back into the dream and you can keep on going back into that, in and out of that dream. You wake up
Right.
and go back to sleep and go back into the same that same method could also be used for astral projection. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, guys, gonna get started. Chapter 10. A lot to talk about tonight. So we start with 10, newfound friend, and the quick cues here, just to refresh everybody's memory on his cues that he uses now when he's out of body, traveling the different rings, and the way he communicates with others while out of body. The ones he uses a lot that are click, which would be the change of his consciousness and how, he goes from one state to the next, one situation, one adventure that he's on to the next, one experience to the next. M band is the thought spectrum. There's a lot of M band here on Earth, and basically all of our thoughts that we're talking to ourselves is being heard on the M band, which is pretty crazy for other people coming here to the Earth to experience it here. There's a lot of M band here, a lot of noise, and it's uncontrollable thought. The TSI he gets into a little bit, the physical universe here. So he'll mention that a lot in these chapters. He mentions a lot of these, but that one a lot. The other ones you kind of can work out as he's talking through the stories here. Percept here, the insight, intuition, he uses a lot. Does anybody else want to comment on these cues?
Yes. The M band noise uncontrolled. The one you said there's a lot of noise there. I don't know whether he took it as the thoughts of people, and then it's just very noisy. I've experienced something like that during a projection where there was so many noise. But what I found out was that there were a lot of people there, like they were kind of like earthbound entities, and they all speak all at once. So you cannot hear nothing. Everybody's saying the same. Everyone is shouting. Everyone is saying whatever. But it's very, very. it's very weighing on your psyche when you hear a lot of people talking together, and you cannot string out, you can't hear anything what has been said. But what I picked up was that basically all they wanted to know was that how do we get out of here? But but they're all speaking all at once.
Right.
So I don't know whether that's related to what I'm not saying that. I don't know whether that's related to what he was talking about. It could be a separate experience, but I've had it before where everyone was just talking at the same time, and you could not hear anything. It was like gibberish.
Well, one of the examples he talks about is when he goes to New York City, and there's so much M-band noise in New York City that it's just it can drive another being from another galaxy or dimension or wherever ring, could drive him crazy because it's so loud in New York City.
Yeah, most cities is very loud. It's loud in most cities, loud and boisterous.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we humans, I guess we could say possibly it's our ego going off in our heads, chatting all the time, making this M-band noise. So I'm going to start reading off some parts that I took some notes from chapter 10. So if you want to respond or add something, just throw your hand up. In the beginning of the chapter, he describes how the OBEs now from the second body, and they go through the dense inner rings and the outer rings. So how he's going out of the second body state, and then how he enters different rings of densities. Monroe, he starts homing in on an inspect intelligent species. He passes through a center major ring. He used to call Locale too. So he's now in areas here where he, I guess, can define it better now of where it belongs and which is Locale. But he starts to move away from locales, from using that. He doesn't use it too much more as the chapters go on. And suddenly Monroe is intercepted and stops with a form because their idents, and that's like your, let's say your IP address for your computer or something like that, was exactly like somebody else, and then he was hooked into that person. So somebody stopped him while out of body. So then he gets a rote, which is a packet of information. He gets a rote from this person, but he also says that you have to be careful when you start accepting rotes from different people out of body. It can cause problems sometimes. But he does accept this rote from this person that intercepted him. And then Monroe starts to experience clicks, and that's change of consciousness. He starts to have change of consciousness, trying to help this form that intercepts him. And then he starts experiencing a cruise group going around different parts of the galaxy on a TSI time-space illusion tour. So he's being intercepted by this being who's on a tour, exploring the galaxy, and they came to Earth to explore over here. And then they start to take him on a tour through New York City, and then he starts talking about the M-band, the uncontrollable thought noise that humans give off. What this person turns out to be is a person called AA and BB. That's who he names these people that he's with, that intercepted him. All primitive life has M-band noise. So basically, Earthlings are primitive. So somebody from the KT-95, as he calls it, person's name is AA, which I just described, is on the cruise, and he wants to be human. And eventually he talks to a Earth Ident Entry Station on how to get into human form. So you got somebody coming here from KT-95, and he's loving the human experience so much, he wants to figure out a way to get in and become human here. And his friend BB is not liking it. Now AA's trying to get into try to figure out how to get in to be a human. He wants BB to wait for him while he experiences life on Earth for a little bit. Eventually, the cruise group has left them behind. So AA and BB are left behind now. eventually, BB realizes that AA did not come back after going to Earth, and so joins the Earth Entry Director, whose name is Ed, for Entry Director, to go look for his friend, who he thinks decided to go through another human experience. So now AA's getting lost. Is anybody else lost here, or are you guys following this? The Entry Director, or Ed, tells BB that all those humans lost their rote, who they were. So basically, when you come down to Earth, you can't pass a rote off to somebody else, a packet of information. All of us humans have lost that information. And that's something that we signed up for when we decided to become human. So BB finds out that his friend AA is a first-time human. Humans that have been and have many times are called old-timers, or if hung around. Let's see here. Wait a second. Okay. Yeah, there's first-timers, first-timer humans. And then humans that have been here many times are called old-timers. And old-timers are humans that do their best here to help others, humans. And finally, there are last-timers. So there's 3 stages: first-timers, old-timers, and last-timers, who make one more physical life as a human, and then they're gone. They're out of here. And I believe that's what Monroe ends up doing. He's a last-timer. I'm just saying that. I forget from the book in the future, but I believe he's a last-timer. Does anybody know about that? If he's a last-timer? So if you're a last-timer, you basically go home after this, after you're done with Earth.
You can go home anyway.
Well, can you, John, or are you sucked in here for a while and then just reincarnated?
No, apparently the last period when your last incarnation, you come as your higher self. You come back with your totality of your being.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
What constitutes being done?
That's what I felt, that you come back as instead of being a personality generated by your higher self. This time you are your higher self when you come back, because you have to remember. Once you've attained that state of Christ consciousness or cosmic consciousness, you have to still come back to manifest it, to bring down that glory. That glory has to be brought down and manifested onto the physical plane. But it's not going to make sense. It's not just about going and sitting up and in bliss.
Yeah. Well, he gets into that of where they go eventually. Where is home?
Well, the place of the soul, the soul is supposed to be with the source.
Right.
Yeah, soul is supposed to be with God. There's nowhere else for soul to go apart from to return back to the source. You know. So when they say home, unless maybe they're talking about the astral plane, the emotional home, the where we go before we go up into the spirit world.
Right. Julie?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and just preface this by saying this is all speculation, obviously, unless I have my own personal experiences. Mine's just based on other people's experiences of people that I trust. But so there is that constant, that continual conversation, disagreement regarding, do we have to reincarnate back to Earth? A lot of people are like, hell no, I do not want to reincarnate back to Earth. So there's that constant conversation, because Earth isn't, most people agree that Earth is a fairly intense, even if it's a short period of time, in terms of supposedly all the other experiences our consciousness experiences over, the eternity. Earth are really supposedly really short, but super intense. So some astral projectors would say, yeah, you totally have a choice. It's up to you and your soul family, quote unquote soul family, like which is probably includes your higher self, higher selves, multiple, depending on how many dimensions, levels, frequencies you exist on. I know this gets kind of convoluted and confusing, but in any event, it sounds like we kind of have a choice, which I prefer to believe in, but apparently, like according to some of these astral projectors who have, they go onto the astral plane and they basically interview people that live there. So they're journalists and they come back and they report about it. So, one of the reasons that's thrown out there that, you know, we kind of want to come back sometimes to this earth plane, this particular intense earth plane, because one, we have a lot of compassion. Someone might have someone who's a little bit more evolved, like consciously, they really have so much compassion that they're just compelled to come back and help sort of other humans. And then other reasons are we have, you know, our consciousness, whatever, soul, whatever you want to label it, feels collectively with whoever you're making this decision with, that there's more to learn. There's certain specific things that you want to learn. You're like, you know what? I'm going to do it again because I want to learn this. I really want to get it or whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, I think that's cool. I can buy that.
Yeah.
And then as far as the going home, like some of the projectors are saying, well, it depends on where some projectors like just the next realm up from this, not the lower astrals, but the middle astral realms. They're like, I'm cool with that because I want to be physical. I want to have more experiences. And some projectors like, no, I want to go into the mental realms. The more like we're not as physical and we're more, you know, for lack of a better way of saying it, like more spiritual, fluid and whatnot. So I find it very interesting, to be, you know, perfectly open. Like like a lot of people would be like, no way, I don't want to be just some kind of flimsy spirit or whatever and go back and or merge with oneness. A lot of people don't want to do that. For me, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, isn't that that's where I belong. I feel like that's where I belong. But other projectors will say, no, that's not where I belong. I do not belong merged back with, you know, oneness or whatever. I'm so curious what you all think. Like if you did a survey, what we would say, what people would say, where do you feel like is your home right now in this moment in your journey? Where's yours, Juice? Where do you think your home is? Or have you thought about it?
I believe it's here right now. I definitely believe I'm learning something here. And I accept everything the way it is because that gives me the best ease and possibility of absorbing all this and learning as much as I can.
So it sounds like you are completely open to when your physical body dies, you're like, wherever my consciousness goes, I'm cool with that. That's where I'm meant to go. I don't have any connection or any desire to go to one place or another.
I feel like when that day comes, when I die, I feel like I'm going to get the information back. It's gonna compile on top of what I'm doing here now, and then I can decide what to do once I get that other information that was deleted when I came here.
Yeah.
And once that deletion comes back into my mind, then I'll make a decision.
Yeah.
That won't happen until you get to the mental plane, though. Because that's where the memory.
You don't have to make a decision, though.
That's where memory is stored, where past memories are stored. Yeah, in the realm of the subconscious mind.
Here's a question. Okay, if you have your higher self living on the astral plane, and I'd love to hear Brett's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want Brett to respond to you real quick, Julie, on that?
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
Well, I was just going to ask a question about Monroe, really, because I just wanted to know if he wrote about what constituted him being done.
Yeah, that's a good
with this
question.
Earth experience. Like
Right.
how he knew that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna think that he knew it by what he's doing with his out of body and his connections, and then what people were telling him when he's out of body.
Hmm.
And basically, not too many humans can do that, and he's on the last part here of being human because he's got all this information now.
I don't know. I just feel like you can always come back if you want. You know, even if you were technically done and like with your experience, I don't
Right.
think there's anything keeping you from coming back if that's really what you wanted to do. Because it's not,
Yeah.
when time isn't an issue,
Yeah.
then
Right. I see that too. That resonates.
So basically, you're saying you go home and then maybe, I don't know, a million years you come back and do it again. Do
yeah. What
something
if you
else?
want to take
Yeah.
a vacation? You're like, hey,
Yeah.
honey, you want to go to
Right.
Earth? You know, it's like that's what it sounded like that cruise that picked him
Yeah.
up. It's like, what is this? Some MLM selling Earth timeshares or something? And
Right.
they're like, hey, visit Earth. You know, but yeah, I don't think it's as rigid as some of us might think sometimes.
Yeah, I've read that too, where the projector interviewed somebody or whatever, and they're like, no, you know what happens is you go to these mental realms, and sometimes after whatever, who knows, billions of years in our timeline, you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm getting antsy. I gotta go do something different. I think that's kind of cool to have that
Right.
openness.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, eventually here in the book, he gets into the fourth person that's here on the planet after the last timers. There's a person here that's called Seekers, and that's the fourth one. And they come poking around here, and they still got the physical body on Earth. And then I was wondering if that's what he's talking about in there. Is he talking about Monroe, basically? So he's a seeker. Well, after he talks about the seekers here, Ed and BB and AA, they find AA finally on Earth here. And AA wants to enter through New York. And he has to choose a sex when he comes here. He's wondering what a sex is and stuff like that, male or female, what he wants to choose. He doesn't really care what he chooses. I guess it doesn't really say which one he chooses. And that it's going to take a little bit of time to get into New York because there's a longer list of people waiting to get into New York. But if you wanted to go to Bombay or Calcutta or something, it could be a lot faster to get in to have an experience.
It's so weird.
Same thing happen, Juice, does the same thing happen with us? Are there multiple entities wanting to be reincarnated as us? Did I win out over all the others that wanted to be this guy this lifetime? Is it the same as what you just described?
Yeah, basically he's describing that, but he doesn't say, like, say you wanted to come back. He's not saying that it might take longer or shorter. I don't know if you have to get back in line again if you want to come back.
But aren't you taking, you're saying all this, assuming that there's this timeline thing. You know, I get the feeling that whatever's non-physical is outside of time, so that the perception is very different than ours in terms of, coming back after. I think that if there's no time, then it's a whole different ball game that we can't even comprehend.
Yeah, he does mention that, Lenny, that there's a time thing here that they don't understand. These people that are on the tour, they don't really understand human time. But they want to. The one guy called AA, he wants to experience time as a human. He wants to experience all that. A linear.
He's from out of the area. That's something I want to experience. I never experienced time. Oh boy, this is weird stuff. I might have to pick up building birdhouses as a hobby maybe instead.
So let's see. So AA wants to enter through New York, and so he's waiting in line to get in. And then he has to read over all the agreements and he has to use his imprint to pass through the entry point to become human. So he has to spend time now and read through all this legal stuff to become human. And he has to imprint himself on this certain type of the entry director's information there to get in. And let's see. So he does all that. AA does all that. So for successful learning here as a human, you have to have temporary blanking of pre-entry activity, and that's essential. So it's got to wipe out your brain of remembering how you got here on the planet. So you get wiped out. You have to sign a form that's going to wipe your brain out, your information. So while AA's waiting in the waiting room, let's say, he meets another form and finds out that you need to qualify to become human now. So basically, you can't just come here and become human. You actually have to go through some qualification. And then AA finally goes into human form and lives a life in New York as a male to the age of 45, and then he dies. And then when he talks to BB about his life on Earth, because BB's waiting for him, BB just wants to go home, but AA wants to go back and live another life now, since his first life was cut short and he didn't get to do everything he wanted to do. So now he wants to go back again and do more stuff. And he also wants to be a female this time. So now BB's wondering, AA is starting to get hooked to the human experience.
Pizza. Pizza and women.
And those are the notes I have to the end of chapter 10. Julie?
One thing that is confuses me, based on some of the astral explorers, the middle astral is kind of like a step up from this earth plane. Like it's still earth-like. It's still solid. It's still, you eat and drink and have sex and even have babies. I just found out. And it's in jobs and you know, all whatever you can do here, you can do there. And then a little plus sign, you know, plus you can fly, you can do some other more, it's like superhuman, being superhuman on a little bit of a better earth. So I'm confused personally. Like, why would I come to this earth plane when I can probably learn very similar lessons on the middle astral plane? If you have an answer for that, Juice, I'd love to hear it, because that confuses me. Yeah, Brett, you have an answer? Please help. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, I've talked to a bunch of people that have eaten, like just on that one topic of eating in the like near physical, where it's very Earth-like, and
Yeah.
it's almost like you're participating in a memory of eating. It's not. It's like the taste and everything's there, but it's a bit dulled compared to here.
I've heard the opposite, that your senses are on hyperdrive in that
Well,
middle,
like
not the
the
lower astral, but the middle astral.
senses and everything, like perceiving and thinking and stuff like that. Yeah, but I'm just people I've talked to. I haven't tried eating personally, even though next time I want to, because that helps ground you. But they were saying like they go to restaurants and people like
Right.
when you're talking about pizza,
Right.
they're like, oh, I'll have a pizza, and there's actually people serving you and people working in the kitchen, and I'm like, what kind
I
of
don't
kitchen is
care.
that when they're just
I love cheese, but there's no way I'm going to come back to the earth realm just to
just for
experience
cheese?
cheese on a better level, or wine, you know, just because I might experience a little bit better on earth plane and then give up all the benefits of the middle astral. See, I just don't get
The
it.
thing is, like, the surprise is gone there, really. I mean, one of the people that I met there had no inhibitions whatsoever because there's no fear
Right.
of death or anything. They just did
Right.
whatever the hell they wanted.
Right.
But
right.
here you're challenged because of all the things that you're missing.
I have
right,
heard
so
that. I have
Everything's kind of a surprise.
Right. And you don't know for sure if you're going to live after this life, so there's still a little bit of doubt.
It's like a thrill seeker. You come back to this earth because you're just like an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But to experience that, Julie, you have to wipe your brain to experience it fully.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to do
Jürgen,
that.
Jürgen Ziwe in one of his books also had an account kind of like this, where he was talking to a woman that was going to be incarnated on Earth. And she knew a little bit about what her life was going to entail,
Yeah.
And she was talking to him on like a boat. They were just together, just kind of milling around on a boat. And apparently her body, like in the womb, was being created and growing. And she had to like kept bouncing back and forth as it was growing just to check up on it.
Oh,
But even as the
cool.
baby is growing in the womb, she was projecting out and like talking to people and talking to him. And then there was a point where she's like, okay, I have to go now and be born, you know? And so she's had to go and stay.
Which book is that, Brett? I
Oh
gotta get
gosh.
Vistas or something, or no, the Multidimensional Man.
It's either that one or Vistas of Infinity.
Okay, yeah, that's
I'd
cool.
have to check.
It's too much for me to read. I can't keep up.
I really love his books. He's beautiful books.
So,
Yeah.
Julie, you must have signed up to come here for some reason that was better than the Middle Astral.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I look back on my life journey, I'm 54 now, and well, of course, my life's not over, but I feel like there are lots of different avenues I could have taken, but I feel like my soul decided the most important thing for whatever reason was I wanted to experience being a mom, but not just a mom. I needed to be a mom of in a situation. Well, this is just my intuition, with a child that wasn't 100% medically, had some medical situations going on, and there's something there that I think that I had to learn, among other things. But when you look back on your life, or at least the first half of your life, it is curious. I am analyzing.
Right. Brett?
There's one more thing I wanted, because I've thought about this too, and it feels like to truly understand something is to experience it, right? To live
Yeah.
as that, and then you experience it and you understand. And I think part of the thing that we take from this experience is empathy towards others that have also experienced. And especially when it comes to suffering, right? Because when you suffer, there's the opportunity for growth from it, right?
Right.
And I think when we go through all these hardships, we gain that and we keep that along with us, and we're able to share that with other people and become more kind and just grow as a more loving kind of being with all these different shared sufferings that we've had and all the empathy that we've gained towards others because of it. Because you can sit there and like, okay, I can talk to somebody that's gone through something horrible, but I've never gone through it and I can't
Yeah.
truly relate to them.
Right.
So I think that's part of this experience as well.
Well, Brett, that leads us into a little bit later of what that emotions and energy brings up when you deal with situations like that, and we get to it's called the loosh. So basically, before we get there, we're producing this energy for these experiences that we have here, and the energy that we're producing is for other beings to harvest. So it's going to get interesting here. We're in the matrix. Instead of producing energy from a battery, we're producing loosh.
That's my belief. Absolutely. It's just one big feeding frenzy. Everything eats, everything is eaten. That's the reason it all works. And there's nothing else. No meaning, no nothing.
Right.
We create all this stuff. I mean, listening to all this, everyone talk and all the experiences in the books I've read, near-death experiences, it's all just stuff happening to people. Experiences. That's all it is. Experiences. What's his name? Is Brinkley? Is it Damien? Am I saying his name right? You know, the guy that wrote all those books many, many years ago. One of the first guys to write a bunch of near-death experience books. Very famous. Damien? No? Doesn't anyone know? No? Juice?
No.
What was the name again? I couldn't really hear it.
It's hard to hear you,
I
Lenny.
don't know what's. I'm very pissed at this stupid camera.
All right, I'm gonna move on to chapter 11 here, guys. We got a lot of info while Lenny's looking that up. Chapter 11, the rescue mission. So Monroe goes on a ride to try to rescue AA from becoming human and get him out of there, out of the cycle of becoming human. Monroe leaves his body and then meets back up with BB to try to get AA. And they're both going down through different rings looking for AA. So he's pretty far down now. And then they found AA as a woman now, who works in the fields and has kids. AA is having trouble remembering who BB is, but then starts to remember as BB keeps talking to him. So now it's like BB starting to lose himself in the human experience. And AA's gonna kind of shake him out of it, trying to get him to go back home. BB just wants to take AA back home, but AA doesn't want to, and he doesn't want to leave yet. There's more lives he wants to live now. So now he wants to live even more different lives. Monroe talks about how he starts to like BB, and he feels he's very human in his responses to him. So there's some type of, there's a good connection between the two. Monroe passes through the outer rings where people go and help loved ones with physical death. So this is too bad Susan wasn't on tonight. She'd probably like to talk about that. So he's passing through areas of Locale 2 where people go and meet loved ones who've died and try to help them understand what happened to them. Monroe says he's never really done work like that, and he's particularly not suited for that kind of action. So he never really got involved in that. But Susan, who comes on here a lot, she's done a lot of that, meeting dead people that leave, dead humans. And then Monroe starts to lose his track of BB at one point, so he lost his ident on him. And there's not much M-band noise in the ring where people go when they die, Monroe notices. And because he believes there's not much M-band noise, probably because they're in a state of shock that they died. So a lot of humans can't believe they died, and there's nothing going on in their head. They're just lost and kind of in a daze. And then Monroe talks more about the rings and where so many humans get lost after they die. So there's different levels of the rings, and Julie, you talked about the different rings and stuff, and how a lot of humans will get lost in these. So eventually they find AA again, so after some running around, and now he's a knight in armor, and a warrior who kills humans, as Monroe explains it to BB. So BB can't understand what he's doing, killing humans, killing other humans and stuff like that. But AA is now a warrior somewhere in time. And then as it goes on, AA ends up getting killed in battle, some type of battle. They don't get into it, what maybe year this battle is going on. And BB pulls him out of his body, his dying body. But AA wants to go back and fight and to leave him alone. So AA wants to get back on the battlefield and continue fighting, even though his human body is basically finished. And so BB's trying to understand all of this that's going on, with Monroe's help of trying to understand them, sending notes back and forth at each other, trying to figure out what humans do, why humans kill each other and stuff like that. And why would they want to experience things like that? And then towards the end of this chapter, Monroe gets called back into his body because his blanket slipped off his physical body and pulled him back. So basically his body got a little cold. And he had to leave BB for now. So that's how the chapter ends. Would anybody like to comment on it? All right. Moving into chapter 12, Hearsay Evidence. Monroe starts the chapter and heads back to BB. So he gets out of his body and heads back and continue to try to help him out. And he tries to find his ident, BB KT95. So that's what he's looking for. This is how he homes in on people. So if anybody's wondering how Monroe finds people, you have to tune in on everybody's, let's say, IP address or your ident. So he heads through the rings without any incident, and then he heads into the intermediate area. which he talks about a few times. So Monroe meets up with BB again, but doesn't want to bring up AA unless BB wants to bring it up. So he feels like it might be bad energy, I guess, to bring it up. So he just kind of hangs out with BB to see what's going on. And so Monroe decided out of nowhere to do called a 3-snap roll. So, and then BB's like, what the heck was that? And how did he learn how to do a 3-snap roll? Okay, so they started playing a game with each other, with BB. So BB doesn't bring up AA yet, where he's at on Earth. And so he does this 3-snap roll, and then they start to play a game with each other. So the game is basically Monroe's got to follow him through all different rings and dimensions and stuff like that out of body. It's a game that they play back at home on KT95. And basically the game on Earth is like follow the leader. So basically they're playing follow the leader. So Monroe starts following BB, and he has no idea what they're going through. He finds out if he gets lost by following BB around, if he loses his ident, that he might be lost forever, which kind of scares Monroe. And basically he asks BB, what happens, if I lose you while you're running around all these different areas? And basically BB's like, well, you won't be playing the game again. And that was the end of it. So it's could be a little scary. And then Monroe starts wondering this game that they're playing where they're running all over the place, and the energy that they produced without any specific purpose causes any problem somewhere else out in the universe or other planes. And basically he uses an analogy like golfers on a golf course stepping on ants and not really caring, because you're playing a game of golf on the golf course and you step on ants and you don't think twice about it. So is Monroe affecting other places by running around and playing this game with BB? So BB wants to know why Monroe wants to go back to his physical body. Why does he want to go back there? Just leave it. Then Monroe says that he hasn't quite finished the school yet here on Earth. So that's why he goes back to his body. He has more learning to do, and he needs his physical body to do it. And then he refers to it here on Earth as it's a sort of a game. So now he's using that back at BB, saying that being here on Earth and learning is a game. If anybody, just throw a hand up if you have any questions or want to add anything. Monroe gives BB a non-physical rote since 1958 to understand more about living here on being human. So he throws this rote at BB, and that's a packet of information to try to figure out what's Monroe been up to here on this planet. And then Monroe asks himself, what do you do after you graduate the human school? And Julie, we were just all talking about this. Then what? When you graduate this, where do you practice the stuff that you've learned here? So BB wants to know how Monroe started learning OBEs. And Monroe just responds by saying it just started happening. And then BB gives Monroe a rote and then a click on the history of Earth that was given to BB and AA on the TSI cruise. So now BB's throwing this packet of information at Monroe and basically telling him why humans are here on this Earth. And this gets kind of crazy now. This gets into the loosh. Basically, loosh, which we're now getting into, is a term applied to energy produced by human beings that other entities use to feed from. It is also used to refer to the energy that is produced by suffering that entities feed on. Would anybody like to talk about loosh?
I think it's everything, not just suffering. Suffering, I think is a fairly specific, intense form of energy. But you know, think about our diets. You know, we love a good steak, but we'll also grab a handful of peanuts, and we'll be very happy with that. So, in my opinion, all experiences are feeding. Our life, our life story, is something that is eaten. The various parts of our life are eaten. Our various feelings, the infinite number that we've had since we were born, fears and joy, all those are being eaten um, in their specificness as well as larger segments. My experience in high school, whatever that god awful experience was, my experience in high school is like a meal. You know, it's like a plate. You know, somebody put together and it's contained and it's a kind of unique in and of itself. That's just what I think. And but I also think that we can use some of these energies for our own, I guess, to call it for no better word, spiritual development, um, whatever that means, which I kind of think it has something to do with our ability to be aware of the greater reality. But then again, that's in conflict to everything that we usually hear about us being in this physical experience and without the memory of anything else. You know, we so I'm at a loss to know if there's any end to all this at all. I think it may be just an infinite movie, the movie to end all movies, and maybe there's no whatever it is, no purpose to it other than to feed everything that is within it, which is everything.
Brett and Juice, if you want me to, in a minute, I can read what Jurgen Z-Way has to say about it.
Okay, Julie, I'll let Brett go, and then
Yeah.
you can read it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
for sure.
The only thing that I wanted to say is because I don't really have a lot of experience with this, and the only experiences I've had is in terms of like energy feeding. I did have like a negative entity come feed off of me while I was displaying like sadness inside of a dream, and it attacked me. Well, I used the word attacked, but really it just rested its stumps on me while I was like crying my eyes out inside of a dream, and then I turned to look at it and went lucid immediately, and it was creepy. But as soon as I wasn't doing that, it stopped. Like it didn't care, because after I woke up, and it took like a half an hour to fall back asleep, and it was still there, and it was just observing me, and I was just irritated with it, and I told it to shoo, and it took off. But when I also had my fear test another time, where all these, I think something was generating thought forms to come attack me, and any kind of negative emotion or hostility or aggression, anything like that wasn't working. And the only thing that worked were positive uh, energies, like positive emotions and thought. And that's the only thing that stopped them. So I do think that it is a feeding source, our emotions, for especially negative entities, that like it's like a psychic vampire. I don't know if that's like the whole point, because when it comes to being out of body, so many things are subjective, and it's hard to trust everything that you're experiencing. So when it comes to that, I haven't met anything or talked to any, entities that have talked about loosh or anything like that. All I'm going by is those experiences that where I've ran into these kind of things, and that's it. So whatever overarching plan I have no idea personally.
I wonder if when you release like an adrenaline rush, if that's like a super loosh energy harvest, that rush of adrenaline. I mean, it's all energy, right? So, Julie?
So years ago, I guess, Jürgen, not Jürgen, Jürgen, I guess is how you pronounce his name, German. So he says, for those who have read it, Monroe more or less states that the human race is the design product of a more advanced alien species, which uses our planet as a garden to harvest loosh, where the human species is regarded as the prime and most productive farm animal. All our sufferings and joys produce emotional energy, which is siphoned off by the aliens as a product and taken away to somewhere for their selfish use. The person writing the letter, he had a letter written to him. So the person writing the letter said this was robbing him of his identity, self-belief, and confidence. Understandably, perceiving yourself as a farm animal rather than as a divine being impacts on your self-worth, confidence, and probably should make you feel rather depressed, as it depressed Monroe himself for many weeks. When I read Monroe's book, he continues, I was not convinced at all and could immediately see where it was all coming from, having studied thought forms and their genesis on the mental level in great detail, as I described in Multidimensional Man. I identified it as a metaphor or a mythology in the same vein as many other creation stories in so many cultures have emerged and then evolved into belief systems. These type of mythologies usually emerge on the astral or lower mental level. They are usually based on a single precept, idea, or assumption, and then develop from there into a seemingly sense-making format. Monroe had picked up on the idea during an out-of-body experience, which may have been informed by the, quote, personal field, subconscious dream content, or inner, quote, inner storyteller. This is where all mythology is generated, as are our dreams and fantasies. When consciousness tries to make sense of problems which are too complex to fully grasp, it often relies on the unconscious to supply a sensical script. During out-of-body experiences, we are particularly close to the subjective side and prone to be influenced more readily because it is experienced in such a lucid fashion and can readily draw information from the unconscious or personal field. Monroe could have just as easily perceived emotional energy as being recycled as bad weather and earthquakes for the negative energy and good weather, etc., for the positive emotions, and built a whole belief system around that. There are plenty of examples of these myths that they're generated and then institutionalized in cults or religions such as Ron Hubbard, Jehovah's Witness, Greek mythology, Genesis, almost all religions, you name it. It's all based on stories. The inner storyteller tries to find more coherent ways of dealing with complex issues. Anybody having had lucid dreams or APs can easily imagine how the subjective or personal field can inform experience and how it may have informed Monroe's experience. Even for an experienced projector like Monroe, it would not always have been easy to keep subjective content separate from real content, especially as at the time of his writing, very little was written about it by others. Monroe had to rely to a large extent on his own judgment, not at all easy. I'm sure, being the rational person he was, he may have viewed the Loosh episode differently now, with so much more research at our disposal, and the observations of projecting psychologists who are well informed with regard to how the mind works. In order to obtain accurate information, I always advocate a kind of reality awareness during out-of-body experiences, a state of consciousness which goes beyond social and personal identification. That and an alignment with a higher state of consciousness based on unity awareness, which allows us to take an objective view as explained on my website. This will allow us to filter out subjective content and align us to our self, which is at the heart of reality. We are then detached from our desire or need to make sense, which tends to make calls on all kinds of storytelling processes in order to fulfill these needs. Whereas the higher detached consciousness does not have those needs. It simply follows the stream of reality the way it is. This stream is also a very dynamic process, and as human beings, we often prefer fixed sets of ideas and beliefs we can rely on for our comfort. This is difficult to explain and has to be explained in order to see the difference. So we will need to be flexible interpreting Monroe's experience and not turn it into a new belief as the writer of the letter to me did. Monroe would not have wanted to impact on our happiness. On some level, the mind can present virtually anything in such a way that it makes sense. And on one end, we find the vast wealth of beliefs and philosophies. And at the negative end, we find cults, conspiracy theories, and paranoid schizophrenia. To me, when I perceive or even experience the creation process from the point of stillness, it follows simple yet very perfect rules, starting with simple mathematical geometry on the highest mental levels and then evolves downwards, very perfectly following fractal principles. Suffering and the whole panorama of emotional experiences are simply a byproduct and effect when consciousness comes to terms with new parameters in learning. We don't need mythology to explain the creation process. We simply need to take the viewpoint of unity and watch the whole process of creation unfolding from there. The mind is very limited in its understanding. Our cosmic consciousness is not. That was long, but I wanted to just add that.
So, Julie, if you can sum that up in your own words, what is he saying about Monroe's Loosh theory?
I'm just saying that I feel like he's saying Monroe would not wanted us to pick up on that in a negative way, and he might describe it differently today, having all of the added benefit of other astral projectors and the more information that we have now. It sounds like he's saying he would not maybe have described it in the way he did with the interpretations, with those same interpretations.
So it was some of his subconscious seeping into his experiences, and then he's having these experiences, but it's being interpreted differently because of his subconscious interaction. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So now he might go, oh, okay, and then maybe not put so much emphasis on this is the way it should be interpreted.
Right. Oh. Nice way to, yeah.
That was a lot, but
a way to look at it. Yeah.
You're getting, as you know, he's had his own like decades and decades of experiences, and so we're really in a good place today because we have many masters, many who have gone before us, and he respects Monroe and follows him and considers him a mentor as well. So yeah.
Wow. Thanks, Julie. I was thinking if you brought up the Matrix, you know how we're hooked up to these machines, but our real body is actually being used like a battery to fuel the artificial intelligent machines. So it's like almost, I see a resemblance today. I wonder if the people who made the Matrix read Monroe's books of basically us causing as much drama as you can here to fuel something else. You call it AI or whatever you want to call it. With that, it's energy. It's just another way to harvest energy. A battery or mental energy, physical energy. Does anybody see any relations to the Matrix?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally.
There's something that I see quite clearly. Everything is energy. Everything. I mean, literally everything, right? There's really nothing, there's no so-called matter. Matter is just tiny packets of energy. I mean, that's all it is. And everything that exists has to eat. There is no existence without bringing energy in, because existing uses up energy. And there's excretions, emanations, there's a loss of energy. Everything has to replenish in order to exist. And therefore, if it's like nature, I guess, has this thing, if something is produced there will be naturally something developed to eat it. Everything is eaten, without exception. If nothing can exist because nature is very efficient. And if there was something that wasn't being eaten, nature would say, hey, that's already there. All I got to do is create something that would eat that. I don't have to create something that eats and something else that is going to be eaten by that something. That thing is already half my job done. I'll just grow something to eat it. And of course, if you don't eat it, then everything becomes clogged up and frozen with crap and garbage. So I just think that's how it works. Whether we like it or not, everything is eaten, everything eats. And the other thing that I think is that all creation is just that, creation. There's a pressure from the creator, from the source, a creation pressure. And it causes at all the levels, whether you're calling higher so-called non-physical levels all the way down to this lower type level and whatever might be below, that there's this force creating infinite creation at every level, every nook, every cranny, everywhere. That's all. That's the purpose of all existence, is just creation. And the energy thing is necessary because things exist. And I don't know if there's anything more to it than literally just that, except that I do believe there's been some people throughout history who have gotten out of this, who have escaped the matrix without being in the matrix, escaping the matrix. You know what I'm saying? You can think you escaped the matrix, and it just may be the matrix that's experiencing the experience of escaping the matrix.
Right,
But I
right.
do believe some people have actually escaped, and like Ramana Maharshi and others. And so I'm very interested in all that.
Lenny, nice picture behind you, by the way. The Matrix. Brett?
So my issue with Loosh is just that it's one of those things that makes humans special again, right? It's like, I think as a species, we're addicted to wanting to feel special. We want to know what our place is in the universe, in consciousness, and it's a very alluring kind of topic, because even if it's negative, right, where there's some alien species that has created us for the purpose of harvesting our energy, that still makes us special. When really, in reality, we live in the boondocks in our own galaxy, right? Out of how many galaxies and stars, it's stupid to think about. We can't. So I just try not to get sucked into some of these theories, because it just, I don't know. I think that even though we're a school, there's a countless number of schools. It's just this is a different flavor of them. It doesn't make us that super special.
Well, Brett, don't talk like that, because that means you're producing less loosh, maybe.
I'm looshless.
Yeah, it might be true.
It's just my grumpy old timer talk. Like, get these earthlings off my front lawn. That's my.
So he talks about mobiles are the people that are harvesting the loosh here, mobile, that have the garden. The more unfulfilled, or the more lonely you are, the more loosh you produce. Harvesting of loosh from the Type 4M units, and I put in question mark humans. I don't know if that's what he's talking about there, but love, friendship, family, hate, pain, guilt, disease, pride, freedom, ambition, ownership, possession, sacrifice, and on a larger scale, nations, wars, famine, religion, machines, freedom, industry, trade, all loosh producers. And then when Monroe starts to get ready to head back to his body here at the end of this long excursion that he's on, he can't believe the Earth wrote history. That, remember, this was tossed to him by BB, this wrote. And it started making him, it seemed to me, it started making him angry. Others using us just for loosh. So he starts to realize at the end of the chapter, this is what others are doing, using us for loosh. And then when Monroe gets back to his body, he's unable to get some sleep. This is what Julie talked about a little bit a few minutes ago. And he has no energy or desire for exploration for 2 weeks following, and was in a depressed state after realizing this. So guys, it affected Monroe pretty much here. This kind of brings us to the end here. So would anybody like to bring up anything about anything we talked about tonight? Any of the chapters? Are you guys all loosed out?
I do think maybe he picked up on, because I do think there are entities that feed off of our emotion, and maybe he picked up on some of that. I don't know if it's to the extent as what he's thinking, but there definitely are things out there that for some reason like feeding off of our negative energy. No idea where they came from, how they originated, or they've always been there, or they're a product of our own negative, like, psychic influences going out there into the astral and creating these things that thus feed on our emotions, kind of like a cycle or a loop. I have no idea, but
Yeah.
they definitely exist. Maybe he was picking up on part of that too to formulate his theory. I have no idea.
Well, guys, we gotta get some people from our group here that are doing this and try to get out and get some more answers. Would anybody be interested in leaving their body and trying to find more of these answers? Or is this like something that wouldn't interest you?
I don't think I mean, it's certainly a pretty cool thing to do a non-physical experience, but I find that information like you're talking about, Juice, is available to us all the time, because my limited experience and everything I've read, it seems that this is just literally, truly an infinite experience, and you'll have 1,000 million people, and they'll all come back with 1,000 million different experiences, different understandings, different beliefs. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's no reality, no capital R reality, just infinite little ones. So are you, Juice, are you asking for more little ones, or are you asking for some overall true understanding that's truly capital O objective?
I guess maybe kind of what Julie was talking about earlier, of maybe expanding on this theory that Monroe had, but to our current time, and explaining it that way. I wonder how it would change.
Maybe the best way is to go find Monroe and ask him if you can get out.
Yeah.
If he's available, say, hey, what are your current thoughts?
Yeah, Brett, I've been out of my body a few times and asked for help from Monroe, but never had any contact yet.
You never know. They might be busy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, he didn't come to me, so...
I just asked him, and he said it never ends. That's all he said.
But I was going to say, even if Monroe did come to me, how would I even know that was Monroe, I guess? Unless I had his ident, which, I don't know. It's like you said, you ask one question, you get 5 more. So, you just do the best you can and enjoy the ride, I guess.
There's a funny, quick experience from this other guy that he has a YouTube channel, but he wanted to go visit. Well, he was in an area that was all like a universities and areas of learning, and one of the guys there, some coordinator, told him that Tesla was there, and he was like, oh, I would love to go meet Tesla. And he was like, well, Tesla's kind of busy because everybody wants to go talk to Tesla. And so the coordinator was like, Well, Edison's also here, and he's available. Do you want to talk to Edison? The guy was like, nah. Like, I didn't want to talk to Edison. I felt so bad because it's like, wow, even in death, poor Edison can't get a break.
Oh, that's good. Well, guys, the next meetup, 13, 14, and 15 chapters will be on Wednesday, same time.
Same place,
And
same time. I'm still going to be more positive, and I like the idea that consciousness is expanding and an ever, revolving inward and outward and inward and outward and expanding and growing. And I like the idea that all knowledge is just that, but all experiential knowledge is not possible until we experience it. And we are just consciousness having experiences. Enjoy the experience, enjoy the ride, because that's what consciousness is doing. I like that
Right.
idea. It's a positive idea for me.
yeah,
I want to stay a little more positive
yeah, I agree.
on this ride.
Enjoy the ride. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I'll see you hopefully all on Wednesday.